The Switchmaster came from Gibson. It was given to me by Gibson, and I was looking for an unusual guitar, something that you don't see very often, but is still quite rock and roll. Cole Perkins played one of these. I think he brought it over when he toured America, Britain in '64. I think it was. We had the Beatles on the tour with him, and I've always loved the idea of a big blonde Gibson guitar. I owned one briefly in the mid-90s, but to have something like this to play on stage, it just makes me smile every time I look at it, and every time I pick it up, and every time I play it. They're not practical guitars for rock and roll, really. You need to sort of tinker with them a little bit, but I've got 10s on at the moment. It was on 11s, but I've gone down to 10s. The neck's been shaved a bit to make it a little bit more playable for me, what I'm used to. It's got the fixed arm Bigsby, and it's got the 3 Alnico Staple V pickups, which were made by Seymour Duncan. It originally had PAFs, and it was sunburst, and then I took it to Rob Bond at RJB Guitars, and he does all the work for me and has done for 20 odd years. So he did all this fine work to make it such a beautiful looking guitar and beautiful playing guitar. But it's great for rockabilly stuff in general. You know, you can play anything on this. It's just a wonderful guitar, very versatile. I've got the second pick, the middle pickup is kind of turned off really here, so I can mute it on stage if I need to. But you've got the fat sound up here. Cleans the middle sound. Of course, the biting sound. Nice guitar, beautiful. This is an ES-295. It was as played by Scotty Moore on the legendary Sun sessions with the King, Elvis Presley. Now, I've always wanted one of these because they look beautiful. I didn't know how practical they would be, but whether I would be able to afford one, to be honest with you. But I bought this from a lovely man called George on eBay recently. He lives down in Devon. So he bought this in hoping it was going to be the guitar of his dreams. It wasn't quite, but so anyway, he put it up for sale, and I went down and saw it and fell in love with it. It's a late 90s custom shop, hence the Bigsby. When they remade these in the early 90s, they put a Bigsby on them, which kind of, it's a bit of a shame because they didn't have them on originally, but it's great for me because I can't play a guitar without a Bigsby. So nice to get one with this on. This is a late 90s one. I don't know the difference between the early and the late, but they didn't make many of them. They made a few in the early 90s and a few in the late 90s. Now normally I don't like buying second-hand guitars because I like to have a guitar from new so I can put all the scratches in it myself and mess around with it. But you're not going to buy one of these brand new, really. You know, not like this. So I was very fortunate to get it. It's hardly ever been played. So it's really a spare. I take it on stage and have it as a spare. But it's a beautiful guitar. It's got a beautiful, beautiful neck. Totally unlike the Switchmaster. It's very. It's more like a Gretsch neck, really, I think, in some ways. It's more like a 6120, perhaps a little deeper, but if it was a flatter neck, it would be perfect for me. But it's really lovely to play. I've only used it once or twice on stage, and it's been wonderful. But I think these are beautiful, beautiful guitars. I see Gibson have just done a faithful reissue of the 1952, and I'd love to see one of them, but this will do me. I'm very happy with this. Okay, this is a Gretsch 6120. This is the greatest guitar that has ever been made in the world ever. I mean, I'm not trying to belittle any other guitar, but it's just a fact. And this guitar is the reason why I play guitar, is because the album cover, Singing to My Baby Brady Cochran, that I saw when I was a child, And I'd grown up wanting to buy one of these. I managed to buy one in the late 80s when Gretsch first started reissuing them. And I mean, they were beautiful guitar. I remember when it first arrived, you know, opened the case and just fell in love with what it was so shiny. It was gold everywhere. It was wonderful. But then after you get over that, you start realising that they weren't as accurate as what they could have been, you know. So then I spent the next God knows how many years trying to make it look like Eddie Cochran's guitar. So I had to have the D-Armond and the P90 on the front, as Eddie had, a fixed arm Bigsby. And then I got the guitar playing beautifully, looking absolutely superbly, and then it got stolen from a theatre in Melton Mowbray, and that's why I no longer eat pork pies. So I was devastated. It took me a few years to find a guitar that even came close to playing as beautifully as it and sounding as beautiful. And then a couple of years ago, 2-3 years ago, I was working with Jeff Beck, and he had this very guitar in his living room, and he was thinking of buying it, and decided against it. So I asked him if he wouldn't mind if I bought it. So I bought it through Fender, and it's a custom shop. It's a 2008 custom shop made by Stephen Stern to the 125th anniversary of Gretsch. There you go. It's written on the headstock. So I bought this guitar, and it was absolutely perfect because it adheres to my philosophy of having a brand new guitar that looks 50s, or could have been made in the 50s, but it's brand spanking new. No one's ever played it. No one's ever owned it. It's if anyone's familiar with the Eddie Cochran guitar that Stephen Stern recently made, this is quite similar in many ways. And I bought this just before the Eddie Cochran one came out. So, but I've done everything to it that needs to be done. It's got the fixed arm Bigsby, which has been anodized. It's a little bit darker, but it's quite nice. It's got a Seymour Duncan D-Armond here, Dynasonic, and I don't know what that is. It's a P90, but I don't know where it comes from. And but it's just a beautiful, beautiful guitar. And really, you know, it's such a precious guitar that I would love to play this on stage on every gig because it's perfect for me. You know, I could play. I really feel I play well on this. You know, all guitarists talk about the one, you know, and this is the one for me. But it's so precious that I don't feel I could take it out, really, because if I lost it, like I did my last Gretsch, you know, it would be devastating. So reluctantly, I kind of leave it at home. I do use it in the studio a lot. The Catmen album was all recorded on this. Well, 90% of the album was done on this. It's the trusty guitar. I know that if I'm struggling in the studio, I could just grab this guitar and the world seems a better place, you know? It's one of those guitars. That kind of a thing. Okay, now this is a Rockingham, a Peavey Rockingham. Back in the late 90s, or it might have been early noughties, I met Ken Ashard, who was then the head of Peavey UK, Peavey Europe. And Ken is a big Eddie Cochran fan, massive Eddie Cochran fan. And he'd bought a book that I'd co-written with Julie Mundy called The Eddie Cochran Story, which came out in 2000, 2001. And Ken wanted me to become a Peavey endorsee, which I was very proud to do. But at the time, it was just after I'd had my Gretsch stolen. I was using a Fender Bassman, 59 Fender Bassman reissue, which was made in the early 90s, that I had trashed and blown most of the speakers, and it would, every time I plugged it in, I was getting electric shocks and things like that. My band at the time, the Enforcers, we didn't have a PA. It was all falling apart because it was so old. So rather cheekily, I said to Ken, yeah, I'd love to have an amp. That's really kind of you, but I also need a guitar and a PA and all sorts of. And he very kindly gave us a PA, a guitar amp, and let me help him design a semi-acoustic guitar, which was very good of him, really, when I think about it. But because I don't know if I would have carried on playing because I was so disheartened. You know, it wasn't making any money. You never make any money playing music at the best of times, but certainly not when you play rockabilly. And he really helped keep us going. He was fantastic. So Imelda is a fantastic artist. So I got to draw a guitar, a semi-acoustic guitar, and I just copied down the dimensions of my favourite guitars, which was body-wise would be a White Falcon and the neck of a 6120. You know, so you put them together, you've got what I consider to be the perfect guitar, really, for a big chap like myself. And because the Falcon's got a bigger body. So anyway, went away, kind of just every so often I'd phone Ken up and say, how you getting on with it? And there'd be no news. And then one day he called me into his office in Corby, where the Peavey factory is, and he pulled out 2 Rockinghams. One was blonde and one was this purple finish. This isn't actually the one, but it was this finish. And he gave me the blonde Peavey, which I took away and played for a long time. And they were just mock-ups, really. They weren't guitars that were meant for gigging because they were virtually unplayable. I remember that the pickup was so close to the bridge, they were almost touching. It was a real nightmare. So anyway, I played that guitar for a couple of years and loved it. It was a really, really beautiful guitar. It sounded great, looks great. And they got stolen in Spain somewhere, and I never saw it again. But I got this guitar from Peavey. I got several Rockinghams, all in different finishes and different colours and so on. And this is the one that I used on all of Imelda's stuff up until the new album that we're doing at the moment. I played this on Love Tattoo and Mayhem as well, I believe. Okay, so for many years, I'd always wanted one of these Watkins Dominator amps because I'd used one on one of the first albums that I did in the mid-90s, my first solo album actually, and it wasn't the triangle-shaped one as this one is. It was, but it was beautiful, and I really loved the sound of it. But I didn't really want an old one because they were unreliable, and I didn't want them blowing up on stage, and they cost a fortune, so you don't want to spend out all that money and then have it blow up on the first gig that you do. So I always thought, wouldn't it be great if somebody made one of these brand new, incorporating today's technology and health and safety and all that rubbish, which we moan about, but actually does come in handy if it's not going to electrocute you and kill you on stage, which you don't really want to do. It's a good career move for some people, but I want to live. So I wanted to get a brand new one of these, and I saw on the internet that a fellow by the name of John Beer was going to make them. He had been given the go-ahead by Charlie Watkins, and so I got in touch with him, and my wife very kindly bought it for me as a Christmas birthday present. See, my birthday is just after Christmas, so one of the advantages of that is that you get bigger presents, so you can ask for something slightly more expensive sometimes. And so my wife bought this for me as a birthday Christmas present, and it is just absolutely beautiful. And John very kindly made it in a custom colour for me, because they normally come in blue and white. That's how they were originally. And he did this in red and white for me, and I think it's very fetching. It's a very beautiful looking amp. I don't know if I would gig with it, to be honest with you, simply because it's not a cheap amp, but it's definitely something that would get used in the studio, and may even on some small gigs that we do. But it is just the most wonderful amplifier, and it's got that wonderful brittle sound that you get from those early 50s, early 60s, late 50s, early 60s amps that were not really big enough for the job that they were being asked to do, you know. So just for, I'm not going to crank it, but just to give some idea, I've got a Marshall Blues Breaker pedal, which I sometimes use for a bit of dirt. And if you want to look at them on eBay, they're £200 apparently. And so this is a kind of a clean sound. So you can hear it sort of on the edge of distortion there anyway, and it's not really turned up that loud. So here with a bit of distortion. Rattles as well, which is very authentic.